Well, if you were recording to the cloud, you should be okay.
I'm recording locally.
Oh, okay.
So I'll start recording to the cloud.
But yeah, one thing that I don't do, or I try as much not to do, is to save any data locally on my hard disk. And that is just so that if I have any failure, it's always somewhere else that's not local.
Yeah. Well,
so when did I cut off? When did I until when did you hear me?
So you were saying that Kubernetes has this failure already in the system, but with the KubeMonkey you can see how you fail. And this is
so Kubernetes has a way for you to specify things like replicas. So for example, if one of your serving pods dies, like another one will pick up the slack. But that like certain applications may behave very differently depending on what they are. So it's always good to kind of test your system for resiliency. And this provides you like a very easy way to kind of configure and forget it. So did you hear me talk about like each one of the things that you can configure with KubeMonkey?
Yeah, that was
okay.
Weird.
Yeah, so that's basically it. At a high level, that's what KubeMonkey is and what KubeMonkey does. Now, KubeMonkey, I think one drawback that it has is that currently the only unit that it can inflict this kind of chaos on is the pod. But there are like many other scenarios that we would like to test, like network latency, like if you have a very busy network, how would your app react and things like that. So those are all things that we can either add on to KubeMonkey because it's open source, or we can have a GitLab specific way of doing it. So we'll kind of have to figure out how to do that as we go on. So this vision that we have for chaos is twofold. What did I do in my chaos vision? Okay, I guess I killed it. So the vision that we have for chaos is twofold. So first one is adding KubeMonkey as a part of a GitLab managed app. And this has kind of changed a little bit. As you know, right now we install apps with a single click. KubeMonkey is going to be one of these new apps that you install through CI. So we're going to provide you a template and then provide you, hopefully, what you see won't change. So you will see KubeMonkey in your GitLab managed apps, and you click a button, and then the CI job will run, and we'll install it in your cluster. So that's great. That has some value, but the reality is that users can do that today. So users can install KubeMonkey quite easily on their Kubernetes cluster. The real value, or the more added value, will come when we automatically allow you to configure chaos engineering through auto DevOps. So I'm really excited about this one. And this is about adding KubeMonkey support to auto DevOps. So what I picture will happen here is that you don't have to basically do anything to opt into chaos. You can just enable KubeMonkey through a CI variable, and it will run with the defaults. That would be kind of the first stage. Then when it kills one of your pods, we'll have data about the failures. I'm not sure where this data will be. This is part of something that I hope you will help me with, is that we inflicted some chaos on your cluster because you turned it on, and the auto DevOps pipeline basically used the defaults of key, and then we return a report saying, this is how much time your app was down, how much time it took for another pod to spin up and take the slack, like what was lost, what sessions, I don't know what kind of units we will express this in, but KubeMonkey has a lot of documentation that will help us with that. So this is kind of what I picture is going to be the real value, or more added value, is that users that want to inflict chaos on their app, they don't have to be an expert on the tool or chaos engineering. They can just basically give us a CI variable saying chaos enabled or kubemonkey enabled, something like that, and basically set to yes, and that will tell us to kill pods with the default values.
Can I ask questions?
Of course.
Cool.
Please.
So this, I guess, this is not happening on the production environment. Otherwise, chaos would be inflicted. Or is it happening on the production live environment?
So that's up to you, how you're doing your apps. But here's how I've seen it play out in most shops that are doing chaos engineering. So first, they inflict chaos on a controlled environment, like staging, let's say. And they see how their app reacts. Then they do some code changes to add more resiliency to their app. And then they do it again. And then when they get to a point where they feel that they have added enough resiliency to their app, then they test it in production. Because the real value comes in like real world testing in production. When something happens, how is your app going to react? So like Netflix is famous for doing this in production. Like they did that all in a staging environment. They run a bunch of tests, add a bunch of code to make sure that things die gracefully and users are not impacted. And then they just set up Chaos Monkey on production to randomly kill stuff. And that's where the real value is. Like that's, I would say that's like putting, what's the saying? There's a saying about putting your dollars or where your mouth is or something like that. But that is the real value, is that you trust the resiliency that you built into your system enough that you're not afraid to use it in production because you know it will work. And if it doesn't work, then great. Yeah, you have more stuff to fix.
Yeah, I've seen Netflix down once. Maybe they were inflicting their own chaos.
Well, yeah, so it's funny, but they have like times of the day, like around from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. is their busy time. And because most people like watch Netflix to unwind after work and stuff like that, and their traffic is just insane. So yeah, at those times, I've also seen like an error message, and I have to try again. But then when I try a second time, it works. It's not like it's down for an extended period of time.
Right. Well, for me, it was down for quite a while. Okay, so could we make use of our preview environment? So we have
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that one of the things that we're going to do with Auto DevOps is that Auto DevOps has a staging environment, and it has a production environment, and you control how you deploy. I don't know if you remember that part, but you can have. Let me show you. Sorry.
Incremental rollout?
No.
Oh.
So you can default the way that you deploy to be like straight deployed to production, which is less usual. And then you can say continuous deployment to, or no, automatic deployment to staging and manual deployment into production. So what I picture is that this is how most people have it set up, is that it automatically deploys into staging. And then I picture them running their tests there and see how things react, making changes and stuff like that, and then manually deploying into production.
Right. So it would be like the testing experience you described, probably first test in staging, then improve until you're ready to test into production. But maybe could you, at staging, you can, what's the word? You can simulate traffic, etc., right? So you don't need.
There are like plenty of tools that allow you to do like, a simulation of load, like load testing and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's a good point. That's something that probably the testing group will have to work on. And I wonder, testing group, here it is. Unit testing, integration test, load testing, see? So we already have a plan for load testing in 2020. So how great would it be to kind of unify these two things of saying, I want load testing with my chaos engineering and like have a dashboard with all the results. That would be pretty cool.
That would be super cool. So we need to do user research on, in my understanding, on the data that the users need as a return from inflicting the chaos on their systems.
Sure. So there are some things that the tool will return by default. And I picture us with an MVC just using those. And then, yes, it would be great to do some research to see like what is the most valuable thing you think that this chaos engineering should be returning to.
Cool. And on your previous point, you said it's a bit out of our conversation slightly. You said you expect that most people use the third configuration, which is automatically deployed to staging and then manually to production. I was just wondering if you have any data.
So this is anecdotally, I can tell you the users that I've spoken with, they have the setting in Auto DevOps. You know, as far as I know, this is not actually something that is instrumented. So that's a good point. That's a good takeaway. Let's take a look if it's on the usage ping. I doubt it.
Yeah, I didn't find much when I logged into what's the tool we're using? We're not using Google Analytics, I think.
Periscope.
Periscope, yeah. There was not much information, at least from what I could tell.
So here I have Auto DevOps source, enabled, disabled, and that's it. Those are all the things that I have. And so yeah, it's a good point too. I'll take a to-do there to add instrumentation to Auto DevOps deployment strategy.
Is it also possible to know how many people use the UI versus the command line?
For what specifically?
For the Kubernetes integration, configuration, installing the charts.
So you cannot do that through the API. So you can create a cluster through the API, or not create, you can add an existing cluster through the API, and you can set the base domain through the API. But those are the only two things that you can do. So we have issues pending to provide the ability to install charts via the API. This is all very fluid right now because we're kind of fundamentally changing the way that charts are installed into your cluster. So
I had many questions about that too, but maybe we can schedule a separate meeting just for this issue.
Okay, sure.
I was also wondering if I can find this data, like how many people use Auto DevOps, because from last week's commit, my sense was that not a lot of people use Auto DevOps for some.
Yes, so you can check out the configured dashboard, and here it gives you kind of a total of Auto DevOps pipelines. So here I have tiles that give you the total number of CI pipelines that run in GitLab versus the number of Auto DevOps pipelines that run. So we can see that, you know, out of 28 million on average, 944,000 are Auto DevOps pipelines.
Yeah.
So that's like, you know,
small, very small piece.
0.7 maybe, 0.7%, which is still a lot. Like it's almost 1 million pipelines that are running with Auto DevOps. But we know that one of the challenges that we have is that there's a lot of projects that are not compatible with Auto DevOps, number one. Number two, Auto DevOps right now is not smart about when it should run. And number three, we don't have it turned on for everyone on .com. Like we enable it by default on self-managed, but we have to do the same for .com. And because .com has a free tier of CI minutes, there's a couple of issues there, but I think that the main one is that Auto DevOps is running everywhere. If you have like a text-based project that's a wiki or you know, anything, it'll run on any sort of code. So we have to be smarter, and we have to make sure that Auto DevOps only runs when it can add value, and then we'll start turning that dial up, where it's like 20% of projects right now will increase to 30, then 40, then 50 until we get to 100. And then as people find out that Auto DevOps is kind of adding value for those projects. We'll start finding out what are kind of the top projects that people want to see work with Auto DevOps. That's kind of one part of it. And then the second part of it is that right now the build packs that we use, the Heroku build packs and Heroku-ish, those are not cloud native, right? Those were built out from like legacy apps. So the images are very heavy and they take a long time. So we want to make that more efficient as well with the use of cloud native build packs. So just kind of, a couple of things that we have in the pipeline that we hope will kind of add more value to the Auto DevOps workflow. But we know we have some work to do, yeah, for sure.
Good. I think it's worth having a conversation with you again, since you've spoken to many customers and users, maybe a separate meeting again for taking me through like companies that use GitLab, that use Auto DevOps, how they use it, what their needs are, etc. I think you have the best knowledge,
sure. Yeah.
Even more than the research.
Yeah. Did MRI have a chat at commit or no?
I don't think so. So
okay.
I didn't attend all the talks. I went to some of them. Well,
okay.
The parallel ones, I had to choose one.
I'll send you this link. So because Auto DevOps doesn't fit like 100% of the use cases, and we know that, and we kind of want to build that in, a lot of people take inspiration from Auto DevOps and the pluggability, right? So Auto DevOps is composable, so you don't have to use all of it. So you can use, let's say, only code quality, SAST, and dependency scanning. If you're composing your own pipeline based on Auto DevOps, we are not counting those as Auto DevOps pipelines. So that's kind of another problem that we have, is that in my mind, those should count towards Auto DevOps use, because you're taking advantage of these great templates that we've built, and we are not seeing that. So we need to instrument the usage of templates. So we have an issue for that as well. Yeah, there's a lot of instrumentation that we have to work on for sure.
Yeah, I'm still confused what part is worth looking at doing on the UI and what part would be more adoptable, if that's a word, from the command line. So if you want to use even a chunk of the Auto DevOps, would it be worth splitting them on the UI, like use as a complete Auto DevOps solution, or pick testing, or pick?
I can tell you that 100% of the people that I've spoken with that build pipelines do it in a code editor, and then they upload it to GitLab. So they are not doing this via the UI.
Yeah.
Maybe a person that is new to CI would probably take advantage of that, but the reality is that production workloads, those CI pipelines are being engineered, but like seasoned professionals basically, and they all do it in a code editor, not in the UI.
Yeah. So has Tori been involved in the CI design? Like, if
I don't know, but I'm sure she's been here for such a long time that I think that she has been involved in a little bit of everything. I wouldn't be surprised if she was involved in some aspect of GitLab CI.
Yeah, it would be nice if we're not using the UI so much to see how we could present, for example, for chaos engineering, what we were discussing, the data, maybe not through, if they don't want to use the UI to see the results, how would they be presented in the command line? Anyway, yeah. So.
Or in a log file, it could be presented in some sort of log file as well. Yeah, you're right.
So
so I think that KubeMonkey already has some patterns and some primitives to like provide results, and we'll use those initially. And then we'll refine as we get that feedback loop going.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We started with the simplest one, and it's already half an hour in.
Yeah, no, it has a lot of tentacles. That's how everything in GitLab is, but that's the power of it at the same time. All right, so should we then move on to the system stuff and talk about chat ups and runbooks? Did we already talk about cluster cost optimization?
We have, I remember talking about not having well, you were saying that we cannot calculate exact value in money.
Oh,
We
right,
can
right.
estimate percentages of usage and cost.
Yes.
So, but are there any specific issues? And when are we working on that?
Yeah, there are specific issues, and we'll
Okay, I'll go
work on
through.
them hopefully before January 31st.
Huh, interesting. Okay. I still have to go to every issue in GitLab and check it out. I've seen the gitlab.com pages, but next step would be to drill in. Maybe when the time comes to work on it, but maybe before,
Yeah,
depending on the person.
I think that taking a look at the strategy may be better because the issue may have very minute detail that may not be as useful. I think that big, like 1,000-foot view of what the vision is for this particular category may be more useful at this stage.
I think I've gone through it, but yeah, maybe during my second week, I think now things might make more sense.
How long has it been? When did you start?
6th August, so it's been 2 months and a few days, I think.
Wow, it feels like it's been a bit longer now. It's
I know.
been like it feels more than 2 months. I feel like I've known you for more than 2 months,
Yes, and
but
I've known
I
people.
guess not.
I've known,
Sorry?
you've known me since May, to be fair. If
Oh,
we
well, yeah, I guess that's true.
into account my interview.
Yeah, that's true. But it feels that you've been working here more than 2 months for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe I seem
Guess
more
that's a funny
know
thing.
more things that I actually do. I pretend. No, I'm trying.
Okay.
I just created my first AWS cluster today, so
Nice.
I'm very proud
All right.
to
Good job.
rescore the experience baseline for adding a cluster.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about chat ops then. We already have chat ops today. And basically, chat ops, what chat ops is as a concept, is the ability to exercise actions upon infrastructure via chat.
Wait,
So let's say.
can I interrupt? We have discussed chat ops as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think Runbooks is.
So that's great. All right, so let's move on to Runbooks.
I know that
wonder
now
if
it
I
depends on
have.
Victor, but it would be great to get your kind of vision view on them. Depends on.
On what, sorry?
I know that now Victor will prioritize things on this side, but it would be great to get your insights. And
Sure.
you're not moving away, so.
So let's let me see what if I have something set up that I could show you, and I'll talk about what runbooks are, and I'll talk about the historic context in GitLab and all the opportunities that we have there. Yeah, so I guess that I could use my MRA cluster for this.
I need to kill my AWS cluster at the end of my experience baseline, right?
Yes, that would be helpful. So you need to kill actually a couple of things because it's not as simple as if you kill the cluster, there are all these other things that you had to create, like your VPCs and your nodes and all that crap. Basically, you'll have to kill because it costs money. Well, you don't have to, but it would be
it costs
reasonable.
Okay. I'll check the documentation to kill everything.
Yeah, that's a good thing to go through that experience baseline as well, I think. So I think that this project should have JupyterHub installed. Let's check. Yep, it is installed. Great. All right, so let's talk about runbooks. So runbooks are a set of documents that operation teams use when they come across a certain scenario. And I'll show you some real-world runbooks so you kind of know what we're talking about. So for example, these are the GitLab runbooks that the operation teams use to basically know what to do when they come across a certain scenario. So let's say there's some downtime, or there's something that they need to do. So like here, it tells you what happens when you come across an incident. First, don't panic. And things like that. So like it walks you step by step on what to do, right? So first, do this. Second step, do that. Third step, do that. So it's you can think about a runbook, about a step-by-step text-based project that tells you what to do when something happens. Right. So that's at a high level what a runbook is, and they're very popular in the ops world. And so at GitLab, we kind of take a bit of a different approach to runbooks, or that's at least the vision that we have for them. So there is this application or this technology called Jupyter Notebooks. And Jupyter Notebooks are, have you come across these notebooks before?
No.
So they are very popular in the data science world, and people use them to share data. And the great thing about notebooks is that you can build in code to your notebook and run it right inside the notebook and get a result right from the notebook. And there's a really cool video here that basically goes over how this works in GitLab. Let me pause this. And how this looks, well, you know what? I'm gonna pull it up and I'll send you this video. Well, actually, I'll send you this doc.
Yeah.
So you can look at that video. So that's what a Jupyter Notebook is, basically. And Jupyter Notebooks are served by a Jupyter server, right? And we allow you to install this thing called JupyterHub into your Kubernetes cluster. And it basically provides you a way to have multiple instances of Jupyter Notebook servers. So when I install it and I go to it, let's take a look. I'm going to sign into my notebook with GitLab. I'm going to authorize GitLab to use my authorization information. And then, I thought that this server was already up and running, but I guess not. So while that comes up, this is where we want you to store your runbook information, basically because of two things. The first thing is the Rubix library. So this library is an open source library that allows you to take pre-built patterns to operate on infrastructure. So for example, if you were to write, let's say, a query to an AWS database, if you were to write all that code, let's say it would be 100 lines, right? Where you have to like specify the database and what kind of interaction you want and what you want to return. Or let's not say a database, let's say some CloudWatch metrics, like metrics around your own service. So what the Rubix library does is that it has a bunch of interactions kind of built in that make it as simple as a single line to basically interact with a Kubernetes cluster or interact with CloudWatch or some other AWS constructs. So this Rubix library is built by a company called Nurch, and they're kind of friends of GitLab. Amit, who's the founder and CEO, has helped us with a bunch of the Runbooks functionality inside GitLab. So it largely has been kind of an effort that parts of it have been built at GitLab and part of it have been built by Nurch. All right, so let's take a look at the Runbook. So here, when you install Jupyter onto your cluster, we give you a sample Runbook here. And this is what the Runbook looks like. It basically has a setup that tells you what kind of credentials you have to run. And this is all in the video, by the way. And it would be great to do as an experience baseline. this is how to configure an executable runbook with GitLab.
Maybe we can add it as an issue to the jobs to be done baseline. Sure. How to execute a runbook.
Yeah, how to configure an executable runbook in GitLab. But basically, this is all. This is our vision for runbooks. That it's not only text that you go from this system and then come out of it and then go back to it and then come out of it, but all the actions that you need to run, you run them right within the notebook, within the runbook. Sorry.
Besides the fact that it's hosted by a different server, what's the difference between runbooks and scripts? Or is runbook a script, essentially?
So, well, you can think about a runbook. It is kind of a script. A script, however, I think is different in that you run it in an isolated context, right? So you say, run this script, and then you run it, and you have to go to the CI job to view the results. And then what do you do next, right? So the great thing about having this built, and you can think of a runbook, you can think of a Jupyter notebook as a set of scripts that are built in. But the great thing is that when you run them, this is not configured, so it's not going to work. But all you need to do is press this play button at the top, and then it will run, whatever queries you have, and it will return the values for those queries. So let's say if one is for CloudWatch metrics, it'll plot the graph right into your notebook. And then based on that data, the next step would be, if value X is above Y, then execute this, and you move on to the next step, right? So it's not an isolated script, but it's like a conjunction of things. It's a group of things that are cohesive together and are part of the same process. Right. So that's kind of the power of it.
Are runbooks used to test the code? We only have 2 minutes, but no.
Runbooks are not used to test the code, no. They are used to deal with scenarios.
Right.
Like, hey, your production database is down. What do I do? So as an SRE, you say, okay, let me pull up the runbook for database down. And I'll pull it up, and it has a series of steps, and I follow those steps. So if you look at what runbooks are today, where did I put that? Oh, let me pull it back up. If you look at what runbooks are today, there are a series of steps that are written down somewhere that I have to go to other system and execute. So the great thing about executable runbooks is that imagine that each one of the steps had a play button
with a script
beside the steps, and it does it for you automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a script, or it could be some code to, let's say, run a query in AWS. It could be plotting metrics. It could be, so see, this is what is returned. Here is an error because my things are not figured. But if you watch the video, I think you'll get a better view of how it would work.
Cool. Well, I'll watch it before our next meeting. I have to,
okay.
I have a one-to-one with my manager, so I have to.
Okay, cool.
But I'll schedule the next one. Hopefully I'm not taking too much of your time.
Not at all. This is very useful. I think it's knowledge you need to have.